This is the town of Ames, Iowa. It's a small city of about 58,965, give or take a few. I grew up here. I didn't always love it here the way that I do now. But I also didn't know very much about the place. I guess that's true of most people, in most places. In fact, on the whole, I tended to underestimate the significance of Ames, which is a fairly easy thing to do.
America needs a tidal wave of the old-time religion.
It is the birthplace of the evangelist preacher Billy Sunday, but it is also the birthplace of the world's first digital computer. We embrace dichotomies here, but we keep them safely tucked in where they won't bother anybody. Ames is a college town, an academic island in a sea of corn, in a swing state in the middle of the country. It never seemed to be a place too affected by the outside world. But I came to discover that the town was not without its secrets. In fact, there was a whole history that had been buried, or maybe just forgotten about.
Did you get the light working?
I don't know whether, you have to have film in it before the light works.
No. When it goes to forward, it goes on. That's what turns the light on.
Yeah.
And
Now it's going that way.
yeah.
It's kind of sour. It's lemonade, and there's some crackers over here if you want any crackers to go with it.
Well, look at
Look
that.
at that, yeah.
Let's see.
Did they get it?
I think
L, light.
Okay, well,
L means light.
Well, hallelujah.
I don't think it's a real high quality piece of equipment, but it's
No.
It was my family, specifically my grandfather, who got me interested in the history of Ames during World War II.
He made the little doors open and who did it. And it was a little story, So
I can't apologize because
we're all kind of grew up with it.
it's something
with
that
his dad doing it.
Brittany got us into.
We did
Nobody's in a
slides
rush.
and we did.
That works real good. You recognize that, Steve?
I do.
This interview takes us back to 1941, actually, when I was a student at Iowa State College. We would go by this little gray house. Something was happening there, and there were outside of it were all kinds of 55-gallon containers, and it smelled a little bit like carbide from miners' lamps. But other than that, why nobody knew what was going on.
So we're going ISU, Black Cultural Center, Ames Lab. Here we are, A1021. And we should have a file, Ames Lab Manhattan Project here. Some space here. You remember the Irvine Paint and Wallpaper Store? Here in Ames on Fifth Street is Tom and Lois Irvine. They would go down to the Chicago Northwestern Depot of an evening to ship out crates of their paint to customers, and sometimes the freight agent would have them try and lift this box, and it was so incredibly heavy no one could, and it really aroused a lot of curiosity in Ames. What are they shipping out here regularly?
I wouldn't be happy any place but in Iowa. I grew up here and never did go very far. I got a few tours in Europe, and at my age, that's not important. I just marvel and enjoy that other people do keep going.
Elizabeth Smith was the wife of Lyle Smith, a machine shop technician on the Manhattan Project. She fed me 3 ice creams in 3 hours and read postcards from her grandchildren.
We were married in May of '43, and he came here to Ames to work in that little building, we called it Little Ankeny, which was just a very crude structure that there was about, I would say, maybe 12 guys employed there. Anybody that worked there wore their own clothes to work and had to change while they were there and then take those off and wear their own clothes home. And we didn't hardly know that. I mean, the wives weren't too aware of what that was. And they weren't really telling you.
Well, it was started in Ames in early 1942. Dr. Spedding was a very prominent chemist, and he was called upon by Dr. Compton in Chicago to see if he could get involved in a project.
Spedding had done work on rare earths, and Compton thought he wanted a chemist in charge of his chemistry department at Chicago who knew something about rare earths.
And we couldn't do it in Chicago until we built a building, until we got some staff together. And I told him that we had a metallurgist and we had a furnace here at Ames, and that we could get some of this work going. Dr. Wilhelm had been the other man doing all the physical chemistry at Ames, and I approached him, and I knew his abilities pretty well, and asked him if he wouldn't join us. So that's the way we started.
They had a small operation in a building that used to be, I think, the popcorn research facility, and at one point the women's gymnasium. It's a little clapboard building called Little Ankeny, or that was the nickname. It was actually, I think, Chemistry Annex 1.
Yeah, if you go around this way.
I'm going that way, so I'll show her.
Okay, perfect, thanks.
So in the story of Little Ankeny, they talk about taking the uranium bars from the building and loading them onto the rail cars, usually in the dark. They must have loaded onto these rail tracks.
Have you ever heard about Ames Lab's involvement in the Manhattan Project?
No.
No. No, I haven't.
It's not part of our Iowa history that we learn in grade school.
Yeah. So we're kind of on the list of bombings or something like that. We're like in the top 5 cities or something.
Top 5 cities?
Yeah.
That were part of the bomb? Or?
No, that would be bombed if they were trying to hurt America or something like that.
That's another cyclone, first down.
I needed a machinist, machine shop, to build the things that we had to build. So I went downtown, found a fellow who made garden tools during the war. He had milling machines, and he had lathes and saws and things of that sort, and decided to buy a shop, hired him to run the shop, and I could make equipment then as I needed it in the plant.
He was a farm boy, and he was used to making things out of nothing almost, and he could improvise, and we got that thing just rolling fine.
Wilhelm is a tinkerer, and so he did a lot of things that just kind of popped into his head.
At the time, Mother wondered why every trip he went on, when he came home, his pocket was torn, and there was a hole in it. He had a chain around his waist, and he went and cut a hole in his pocket, or tore a hole, and put this tube that had the uranium in it to protect him from, it was a lead, so it was pretty heavy. And he had to have that chain to his waist so that pickpocketers and stuff couldn't take it away from him.
Uranium was the chemical that they were trying to put to use, but they all were a little bit fearful of it.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
They didn't know what they were going to get. They didn't know if anything would happen. They didn't. Honest to God, they didn't.
They could have blown up the Ames.
No, they didn't blow anything up.
To help with my research, my best friend's father, Dr. Johann Golchen, introduced me to Marv Anderson, a physicist who once worked for the Ames laboratory. Marv's team retrofitted an atomic emission spectrometer into a trailer and took it to different sites around the country to test for radioactive contamination. He also got to know some of the men who worked on the Manhattan Project.
What side did you want? Fries, onion rings, salad?
I want fries.
Fries. The fill-in fries. I can do that for you.
We met at Village Inn because you get a free piece of pie with your coffee on Wednesdays.
Oh, that looks awful good. First time they made it go critical, they used a screwdriver, and they were moving the blocks close together.
The blocks of
Uranium.
They moved them together with a screwdriver.
Yeah, to make them go critical.
What does that mean, critical?
When you put them together, you increase the radioactivity. Spedding and Wilhelm didn't know it would work. And
You just tried different things, or?
oh yeah, well that's what research is. You take a little of this and a little of that, and you put it in the pot and cook it and see what happens.
The uranium from Ames was taken to Chicago, where the first sustained reaction took place at Stagg Field Football Stadium, under the direction of Enrico Fermi.
And then the thing started to fission, and there was great joy. People were really dancing in the aisles there because it proved that this thing was working.
During the war, the main job was to get it done and not how you did it, because the pressure was there that if it could be made to work, it could shorten the war and save a great many lives.
They produced these large beryllium copper vessels, and they called them bombs, and they would pack them with uranium plus all the other junk, and then they put the lid on it. They found that if you heated these things to a certain level, they would continue to heat when you shut the heat off, and you would get Derby of uranium.
Up until that time, they had only uranium in the size of your thumb, little pellets. Frank Spedding and Harley Wilhelm, both metallurgists, developed a way to make uranium by the size of bologna sandwiches, a chunk of bologna, in a matter of seconds. They packed up the uranium hexafluoride in there in a tube and sealed it up and put a spark plug in there and set off like a bomb. The reaction occurred, and calcium fluoride was at the top and pure uranium was at the bottom. They crack it open. They actually made tons of it on campus at Iowa State during the war.
They purified about 1,000 tons of uranium here that were in the bombs of Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
It was the best kept secret.
Yeah.
Here it was, the site where most of the work had been done. It didn't look like anything special, no building left, just a small rock that students walk by every day.
We had a room about 6 feet square, and we bought the largest used coffee grinder we could find. And we ground this uranium tetrafluoride. Well, things went very well most of the time, but on 3 separate occasions, we had an explosion or blowout. There was dust and uranium dust and everything all over the place, and it was strong enough that it blew the north wall out of the building. So we'd take a group of men down there, because we didn't want to stop anything, and they'd go and get 2x4s and push up the roof, push the wall back in place, and let the roof down, and then go back to work.
I was now looking at the campus completely differently than I ever had before. I couldn't believe that something of this magnitude happened in quiet little Ames. College students also seemed younger and more carefree than I remembered. In fact, some of the men working on the atomic project were the exact same age.
The first group I took into my program with my own graduate students.
He was very wise, but he wasn't a college-bred person. So for him to be too aware, it wouldn't be like some of these who were really. Dr. Spedding was the most outspoken one that he was hired by, you see. And I can remember what really brought him to Ames was because he was scheduled as 4F when it was time for all these men to go to war. He didn't qualify to be a soldier or to train. That gave him freedom, one might say, to do something that wasn't in service.
Two down and one to go.
Our Pacific troops fought and held back a savage foe so that we might concentrate the full fury of our offensive power against Nazi Germany. And then as we gathered strength in the Pacific, they have closed in on the enemy, destroying his ships and planes in preparation for the final kill. We have won the Battle of Europe, but the war, the global war, will not be won until we have exterminated Japanese military power.
We are prepared to lose 10 million lives in our war with America.
In Japan, committed to world domination or to death.
My own grandfather never had to fight in World War II. He was building airplanes, and his naval duty was picking up stranded soldiers off of islands after the war had ended. He always counted himself lucky that he never had to pick up a gun.
Watch that I don't cheat now.
Don't say anything incriminating about yourself.
Oh, but look at this. 1, 2, 3.
No. Well, I got the other king at least.
Now that doesn't have voice with it, does it? This is going to be quite a picture.
You probably only use a second of the whole
Can you cut that? Cut the voices out?
Oh yeah, we can cut anything out that we want.
You know, if you put that with, just buy a regular bottle of applesauce and add about 10 of those to it, it makes them, gives them a little bit of cinnamon flavor, and they turn pink, and it's a lot more fun to eat.
My grandma was also in college here during the war, but she never talks about it.
That's Uncle Tom.
Yeah, Tommy, he was our little retarded one. He was our fun boy.
I don't know why, but Grandpa did not seem excited about my project. He said I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I got the impression that any research I needed to do, I would have to do on my own. Reading up on radiation seemed like a good way to start. An atom has a nucleus that is made up of positive protons and neutral neutrons. This nucleus is more or less orbited by tiny negatively charged electrons. Elements on the periodic table are arranged by atomic number, which is the number of protons that the atom of that element has. Atoms range in size on the periodic table, from very small, such as hydrogen, which has only 1 proton, to very large. Uranium is the largest naturally occurring element on the periodic table. Because uranium is such a large atom, its binding force, or nuclear gravity, isn't strong enough to hold it all together, so it begins to decay. During this decay, it often undergoes a transformation, turning from one element into another. There are 3 different types of radiation: alpha, beta, and gamma. In alpha, the atom loses a cluster of 2 protons and 2 neutrons. Alpha radiation is big enough that it can be stopped by a piece of tissue paper or by skin. Thus, alpha particles are not considered harmful unless ingested or inhaled into the body in the form of dust. In beta radiation, the atom loses an electron. When this happens, a neutron turns into a proton. Beta radiation can go up to a centimeter into the skin before it stops. Gamma radiation usually follows one of the other 2 types of radiation. In gamma radiation, an electromagnetic wave is emitted from the atom, stabilizing it without changing its atomic mass. Gamma radiation can pass through up to 2 feet of concrete before stopping. But how is this decay used to create an explosion?
If an atom could change itself, why couldn't man change an atom? What would happen if they fired a neutron at a uranium nucleus, already the heaviest in nature? Why not try? So they tried. And the result? Nuclear fission. Instead of a minor change, the atom split in 2. Here now is the release of energy as heat and blast. Here are powerful rays being given off, similar to X-rays. But here are free neutrons driven out with tremendous speed. Those neutrons bombard other uranium atoms, causing them to split and split still others. The result? A chain reaction. Over 1 million billion atoms exploding within 2 seconds. Truly a discovery to change the world. For what had happened when the uranium atom split was a kind of double miracle of science.
Hi! How are you?
How are you?
Good.
Alma, do you want to go help Olia to get some tea? Oh.
Before this visit, I hadn't realized that my friend's father was an environmental regulator for Superfund sites for the federal government back in the early 90s. He had many things to discuss, including Iowa watersheds, his work on global intelligence systems, and GPS. But I was most interested in hearing about his environmental work.
One day in 1991 or 92, I came back to my office and I noticed this thick book, about 4 inches thick, with the letter tuck behind the cover, is sitting in the middle of my desk. The letter was written to Governor Terry Branstad from the Secretary of Energy, saying that it's a report about the Ames laboratory activities and the radioactive waste that these activities have generated. I became curious and I started to turn the pages, and I realized that, oh my gosh, there are 10 different sites in and around Ames, Iowa, that radioactive waste have been dumped without any notice or record anywhere. They have dumped them by Ames Municipal Airport, Ames Municipal Cemetery, under an overpass at the beginning of Grand Avenue, Ross Road, and few other odd locations, but the most significant one was the former location for Ames waste treatment plant. Where the hay bales are. You see, this entire area was where the former Ames waste treatment plant was.
So the former waste treatment plant is now a dog park, right next to the cemetery where we were standing.
When we first moved to Ames, we weren't afraid of it in the slightest. And we let our children go down, and we went along to have picnics in the woods and hike around. YMCA had or YW, some Y program, had a little lodge over there, and people spent a lot of time there.
My husband and I built the house and moved into it in 1956. And lived in that house until 2006. We were pretty broke after buying that house and trying to put in a little flower bed in the front. Our neighbors said, oh, well, you can go out to the solid waste treatment plant and get some sewage sludge, and if you don't get very much, it's free. You haul it yourself, scoop it up, put it in your flower bed, and it'll really help fertilize those flowers. So we did that. And whether that had radioactive materials, I don't know. We never had any concerns about it because we were assured that everything was safe for us. And indeed, as far as I know, it was.
And then one day we heard that they were going to dig up some sort of residue, I guess, that had been buried that was in incompetent containers. Somehow it wasn't, they had the idea that they were going to leak from those containers. And that was why they needed to be dug up and taken away.
One of our neighbors became concerned because we seemed to have a very high incidence of cancer, all kinds of cancer, not one particular kind. There was breast cancer, there was bone cancer, there was larynx, lung, that occurred among the people in that neighborhood. Some of them moved in and developed cancer shortly after they moved in, and then others developed the cancer after they left. But we were there during that 50 years and knew all of these people.
Ross Road
just 2 blocks of it. And I can go down the houses and name them. At the same time Susan was diagnosed, she was in 4th grade. A little boy in my younger daughter's class, he had Hodgkin's at the same time Susan had leukemia. You know, you think, why my child and how? You know, how was her life different from her sister's? You know, what could she have been exposed to?
I received a phone call, an anonymous phone call from a lady telling me that the city of Ames is planning to build a youth sport complex exactly over the very same site where the worst atomic waste contamination were spread.
There is absolutely no hazard there anymore. These are background levels. It's as clean as your own front lawn. And we, with this report, will apply to the DNR to release this site for unrestricted use.
Dr. Gulchin and I went to Onion Creek Farm together to visit Joe Lynch, a friend of his who's an organic farmer who used to be an engineer.
There's 7 billion people on the planet, and we do stupid stuff all the time without knowing the consequences of what we dream up. Whether it's a new technology, nuclear power, nuclear weapons. Hey, Buster, no, come on. Come on. No.
Joe was opposed to the sports field going up back in the 90s, so I expected the interview to be easy, but I didn't know what questions to ask.
Yeah, how did we get here?
So then Dr. Gulchin got involved.
I don't know, Johannes. I can't answer that question.
No. That's what I said. That's what I said. You should not even ask us. Oh, if people want to believe you. I don't care about those people.
But my problem is you need to do some work on this film or whatever, however you want
No.
Let me finish.
I had this information. I had this information to 30 years. I want you to have your own observation. I don't want... No, Joe, don't say it. I'm the expert in this field.
I can say what I want. Quit telling me not to say something, okay?
No, I don't say it. Don't say, no, this is right or wrong. But this is why you have to tell everything you naturally know.
Well, I don't know anything about radioactivity. All I know is saw a bunch of local officials scurrying around like ants trying to keep from saying something that they knew.
That is exactly what you have to say.
But that's all I know.
That is good enough. That is good enough.
It doesn't mean a thing.
The government officials were trying to hide things and they were not open about the facts.
Well, what's the facts? I don't even know what the facts are.
This is the thing.
How can I know what they're hiding if I don't know what the facts are?
This is the whole thing. All of this information I had, it just came from their own report. Now that I'm getting old, I really don't care if they're classified or not classified. It's information which has gone through so many hands, so any claim if they were classified is invalid because you could see how many hands it's gone through and how many people have looked at it. I don't think anybody ever bothered to read it, and when I opened it, it had a lot of scary information in it.
Our next interview was with Pat Brown, an insurance agent who'd been on the city council at the time.
I got a phone call one night from this woman. She wouldn't identify herself. And I know it could be a crazy person, and maybe not, but she said to me, there's a lot of hot spots around this town. She said, you're right. And that's one of them. And she said, I used to inspect and have to monitor these things for the government. And she said, I had a regular route that I would go to and do this. Now, maybe it was a hoax call, but it sounded very legitimate.
This is footage from Alamogordo, New Mexico, where the first plutonium bomb was tested. There were several sites around the country involved in the making of both atomic bombs. The purification in Ames was only the first step.
And I believe that's about when there was really a historical event. The bomb was dropped. About then?
45.
45, yes, okay. Okay.
Do you remember what it was like when you heard the news that the bomb had been dropped?
Well, I happened to be up at the chemistry building at that time, and an announcement came over the radio. It was going to be a very important announcement connected with the war. There were radios on all over the chemistry building.
It's like a lot of people sitting around listening to a football game. We just are anxious to see what's going on.
Mushroom effect could be seen going higher and higher and reaching into the stratosphere. Because the bomb was exploded high above the ground, the greatest part of its harmful radioactive material was dissipated in the stratosphere. As a result, the area under the explosion was relatively free from radioactivity. Persons entering Nagasaki shortly after the explosion to do rescue work sustained no ill effect or injury.
It's hard for people to understand, I guess, the euphoria of the dropping of the bomb in today's world.
As you look back on your work in this project, what it eventually was used for, how do you look at yourself and your role in it? How do you feel about the work that you did?
Well, do you mean to feel any guilty, any guilty feeling because I worked on this?
Yeah, any guilty feelings, or you feel like a hero?
Well, I just did the job.
I think it's hard to realize actually a feeling of being heroes, of having, just brought this war to an abrupt and instant conclusion.
A short time ago, an American airplane dropped one bomb on Hiroshima. The Japanese began the war from the air at Pearl Harbor. They have been repaid many-fold, and the end is not yet. With this bomb, we have now added a new and revolutionary increase in destruction to supplement the growing power of our armed forces. It is an atomic bomb. It is a harnessing of the basic power of the universe.
Our next item on the agenda, the youth sport complex. We'll let Nancy start it off.
There would be 7 baseball fields, 12 soccer fields, and 4 softball fields. This is the entire property itself.
A centralized youth sports complex accomplishes the following. It puts neighbors back into neighborhood parks. It enhances Ames' image as a first-class community, and it's a revenue generator.
None of the radiation contaminated material was ever out there anyway, so that's a non-issue as far as I'm concerned.
Some very strange kinds of cover-up occurred with that field.
Still more controversy tonight, this time over a new youth sports complex in Ames.
Some say the site will make kids sick. Others are ready to play ball.
But not everybody's happy about the placement of the complex. Some residents say there may be radioactivity in the soil.
We have 5 grandchildren in Ames, and not one of them will come down here.
I wasn't too surprised to find out that my grandfather was involved in something like this, but I went back to ask him more about it.
I have the camera, so you know.
Oh, hi, you again.
It's me again. I'm good.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Well,
I am me, whoever I am.
I was just wondering how you found out about the youth sports complex.
Well, you see, the thing was, I knew quite a bit about ionizing radiation. What I've done is collected knowledge. This is the uranium decay chart. It's 4.5 billion years it takes to go from here to lead. This is happening all the time. There's things in here that you don't know beans about.
I needed proof that that area by the field was contaminated, and I had found the minutes to a city council meeting where the sports field was initially discussed. Then someone told me that all the city council meetings were taped and aired on public access television, and that these tapes had ended up at the Historical Society.
We didn't have room for them at the time, so we put them in the basement of the U.S. Bank. There's no order, no sequence. They have to divert staff to kind of watch over us because they're private banking records. And this is, I can understand their point. So it's really not feasible for us to go down there and search them.
But there were some videos that I did manage to track down.
Hello, my name is Tom Barton, and I'm the director of the Ames Laboratory, one of 12 Department of Energy laboratories represented on the Department of Energy Laboratory Directors Environmental and Public/Occupational Health Standards Steering Group. That's a real mouthful, so the Standard Steering Group for short.
The Ames Laboratory is a national laboratory, which means that it is a rather small subsidiary of a large government organization known as the Department of Energy, or DOE. On the DOE website, you'll find pictures of all types of energy: fossil, nuclear, wind, and solar. But its former name, until 1974, was the Atomic Energy Commission.
If you were to take a trip in almost any direction across our great country, you might suddenly come upon a sign such as this: Atomic City. This means the location nearby of one of our atomic energy plants, a potent reminder that we now live in the atomic age.
The AEC was founded after the war as an agency that could foster and control peacetime development of all things atomic.
First of all, sir, can you illustrate simply for us how extensive the atomic energy program is today?
Well, the atomic energy program is big business. It's about as large as any of the largest corporations in the United States at the present time. When our expansion program is complete...
Not quite as big as U.S. Steel.
Not quite as big as U.S. Steel, but it'll be about $8 billion at the end of this expansion period, which means about $200 or more per family invested.
In other words, every American family now has $200 invested in atomic energy. That's a total of about $8 billion.
This is the valley where the giant mushrooms grow. More atomic bombs have been exploded on these few hundred square miles of desert than on any other spot on the globe. Little bomb. Big bomb. Within the last 2 years, 20 of these colossal blasts have echoed across the great barren stretches of the Southwest. This testing ground in our own backyard, just an aerial stone's throw from the Los Alamos laboratory, has been used only for experimental devices below certain power levels. Even so, it has been hugely valuable from the standpoint of safety, the priority watchword of the whole program.
800 of them were set off below ground in Nevada. People could see them from Las Vegas, see them go off at night.
How many people are working for it now?
About 100,000 people work on the program and operations, and construction is larger.
Those people aren't directly working for the government.
These people don't work for the government. Only about 6,000 people work for the Atomic Energy Commission itself, so that most of the work is actually done by private industrial contractors.
In many situations, the employers are not the government itself. They are contractors. So Honeywell or Mason and Hanger or General Electric or University of California could have contracts with the Department of Energy. They could hire workers on these Department of Energy contracts and be responsible for production or research or what have you.
And they made hundreds of tons of plutonium. You know how much plutonium you need for a bomb? About that much. About the size of a softball. Just think about 2,000 tons of that stuff. They made 50,000 nuclear weapons, easy. At the height of the war, 1945, the estimate was there were 250,000 people working on this project, the Manhattan Project. They didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know they were making materials for atomic bombs.
But suppose you are a worker in an atomic energy plant located near one of these atomic cities. This is you coming home to your family. Aside from the usual safety precautions, what steps are taken to protect you at work? Matter of fact, there are many. So many that working in these plants is among the safest occupations in the world.
It was after the bomb was dropped, then they stopped that production. And then he started working on something else, your husband? Or?
He went from his original employment working towards this bomb, which evolved into bigger offices and places to work.
But the coming of the atomic age and work with radioactive materials has brought a necessity for special laboratories with special equipment. Such is the case at the research center of the Ames Laboratory on the Iowa State College campus. Samples of highly radioactive material arrive at the lab in specially built lead containers from reacting atomic plants in other parts of the country. Iowa State College and the Ames Laboratory are currently searching for an atomic fuel that would be as efficient as coal or oil.
The Department of Energy has long prided itself on having an exemplary safety record. Federal agencies involved in environmental remediation recognize that action must be taken. Risk is difficult, if not impossible, to calculate accurately. But the risk estimation process in itself is important, because it focuses attention on potentially unsafe workplace practices and hazards.
I wanted someone to show me around the inside of the Ames laboratory, and no one currently working there was up for doing it. Then someone suggested a former security guard.
I was walking around one night, and I saw a Geiger counter in a lab around the hall, and I just picked it up, and I walked into the room, and I turned the thing on, and it was just click, click, click. It goes clear over and pegs itself. I talked to one of my supervisors, and he said, well, you don't have to worry about that too much. That's probably just alpha emitters, and you don't have to worry as long as you don't inhale any of them.
After a brief interview, Mr. Davis agreed to take me into the building.
Basement. We're replacing a lot of stuff. There may be contaminated materials up here too. Hey, Jake. Hey, how are you doing? Good. What do they do in this room here now?
Just storage.
Okay, they still have those radioactive caves in there and stuff?
Well, yeah, they're not radioactive, but they got samples in them.
How's your stomach and stuff? They told me that you were at the hospital for a while.
Oh, I've been in and out several times.
Well, that must
2010, I had aggressive melanoma and put everything together with titanium rods to keep it in place.
Yeah, they want to remove part of my lung up here.
Go ahead.
What's this here? Rad detector.
10-4, I'll be up shortly. All right.
Do the guards have rad detectors now?
No.
Where's yours?
On my lab coat.
Just on your lab. Just the workers. Just the workers. This is sealed now, right? Nobody goes in there? Let's go.
Well, hello.
Hi, how are you?
So is your camera on?
It is, yeah.
So can you turn it off so I can talk to you?
Okay.
See you, Jake.
Yep, see you.
The head of public relations found us very quickly in the building and nervously escorted us from the premises. We couldn't just come in and ask people about their jobs, he said. In 1970, the Department of Labor passed the OSHA Act to protect employees from health hazards at work.
DOE is uniquely different than other federal agencies, and that DOE is exempt from the OSHA Act and has been self-regulating practically from day one.
He wakened up one Sunday morning and said, "I'm bleeding to death." And that's the first evidence he ever had of a problem. And it seemed like his bowels, he just must have had like a hemorrhage of the bowel, even at bedtime or in the night. I wasn't aware until he told me the next day. He died of colon cancer, and I guess we have been encouraged to pursue it, thinking that perhaps working with uranium could have been the, well, initially cause of cancer to develop. But I don't think anyone ever proves anything about that. That isn't something that I let bother me. I just realize life is life. Yeah. But he was only 61, and my gosh, he was so ambitious and, was dreaming about retiring and all the things that men like to do.
Beginning one more time. Watch the falter.
Now, did you ever worry about radioactivity?
Never. I worked with uranium from day one practically, and we handled the turnings with no problem.
We were all exposed to radiation all the time. I didn't wear a monitor or anything,
yes.
And I guess it's come back to haunt some of us now.
The people from the Ames lab, they were working in one of the most contaminated facilities in the history of this industry.
Dr. Fortes runs a program that screens atomic workers in Iowa for their illnesses and helps them receive compensation from the federal government.
Some forms of radiation are referred to as what's called ionizing. Ionizing radiation can disrupt the chemical bonds holding DNA together, causing breaks in DNA. Once they are repaired, they may be repaired correctly, in which case you have a healthy cell again. They may not be repaired at all and a cell may die, or they may be repaired incorrectly and they can divide with incorrect formation of DNA, and that's called a mutation. If you shoot a bullet up in the air, statistically there is a risk that one of us will get hit by it. If you shoot thousands of them up in the air, there's a greater risk.
There's still a final report coming.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And is that from the EPA?
Is that what?
Is that from EPA or?
No. The EPA has delegated the authority for these areas to the DNR.
Okay, so
it's
DNR.
Never been on a national priority list. It is not a surplus site. It is not a reckless site or anything else. The DOE regulations are applied most often on radioactive contamination, EPA really doesn't have any good guidelines.
DOE and Ames Laboratory, they have hired their own consultant and conducted their own investigation of the site. The name of that company was called RUST, R-U-S-T.
And we will use this report and apply it to the DNR for release of these sites, these various sites around the city for unrestricted use.
I got a copy of the Rust report from City Hall and took it to a geologist named Kermit Dirks. Mr. Dirks looked at the report and agreed to an audio recording, but did not wish to be videotaped.
I've written it down here. Page 6 tells you what their recommendations were, except for that one gate area at the sewage plant. The rest of the contamination was all strictly along the west fence line, which had both exposure limit contamination and water contamination and upper soil contamination. I would recommend that that area be protected. It shouldn't be allowed to be exposed at this time.
Do you feel like it's a thorough report, you think?
No, not at all. Jumps here and there, and it doesn't cover half the issues. It was designed to cover up more than it was designed to expose.
But like the way the places the holes were taken, or?
Yeah, for instance, they're scattered all over here and there. They're not in any order. I'm used to this kind of report, and I had trouble with it.
I remember that cartoon where there was a coyote and a dog, which each one of them had their own business. The coyote has to catch the lamb, and the dog has to go guard the sheep. It's a nature of the work we do.
So the youth sports complex is there now. So how did that happen? If you had all of this information.
Well, that is when the politics started.
So our next item on the agenda, the youth sport complex. We'll let Nancy start it off.
There would be 7 baseball fields, 12 soccer fields.
This site
and 4
was
softball
heavily
fields.
contaminated by radioactive material, and they were going to do it in the next few months.
I don't think we can delay the project endlessly. So the hope would be that we can start moving forward on this project.
So I picked up the phone and called the director of Ames Park and Recreation. And I shared my concern with her, and I said, how could you put the children over a site which is contaminated with radioactive waste? She agreed with me. She said that, I don't know, but we've been somehow approached by some personnel from Ames Lab encouraging us to use that location. So in talking with our team within the department and talking with our counterpart at the EPA office, we decided to investigate these sites. From that point on, the hell broke loose.
Our follow-up surveys in 1988 indicated that the site was in fact clean, and there's really no further concern as far as we can see.
Immediately I received phone call after phone call from the city leaders, way up. They were shouting at us, they were trying to twist our arms. And the pressure wasn't just coming from Ames Laboratory, it was coming from the city of Ames, it was coming from Iowa State University. As recently as almost a year ago, we had this Tiger report by the Navy SEAL expert in radioactive waste. And here is this gentleman claiming, oh, many years before that, they cleaned it up and shipped the material to Hanford. And we also knew that the Hanford had a moratorium on it not to accept any shipment of any kind of the waste. When we cornered them with the question, okay, would you please show us the manifest for the shipment of the material that you clean up? And they realized that we have discovered their lies. Dr. Barton immediately resigned from his position. Of course, he was reinstalled after 2 years by then the president of Iowa State University, Dr. Jiski.
Institutions and people are very much alike in some ways. Now, if you haven't already celebrated your 50th birthday, let me tell you something about it. It's a time both of reflection and also one of careful planning for the future.
You look back over your life and you savor some accomplishments, you kind of cringe at some recollections. No matter what, you vow to do better in the future.
I don't think I can help you any as far as disposal is concerned.
Yeah.
You're going to run into problems with people who won't want to help you.
Is there anyone at the lab who would just consider to kind of talk about this stuff? You know, basically that the waste had been cleaned up and stuff, and to tell me, you know, where it was taken?
I don't want to say right now. Again, I go back to the Iowa Department of Public Health and the fact that they oversaw the cleanup.
Right, but they declined to interview, you know. I mean, it would be nice.
Everyone kept referring me back to the Iowa Department of Public Health, which had apparently okayed the sports field after Dr. Golchin at the DNR wouldn't do it.
I don't know what happened behind the scene, but there was basically collusion by many people to remove me because they knew I wouldn't give in and I wouldn't sign on that.
So then the project was moved to Iowa Department of Public Health.
Yes.
From you.
This division was about to be closed because they didn't have the qualification.
Really?
Yes.
According to Dr. Golchin, the IDPH received a few $1 million from the DOE to revamp their radiological division. Shortly thereafter, they approved the sports field for unrestricted use. But I still had questions about why the field couldn't just be cheaply and easily tested now.
Why don't you just go out to that field
and use a Geiger counter?
And use a Geiger counter, yeah.
The Geiger counter doesn't tell you what is emitting and how much it's emitting.
What does it detect then?
Alpha emission.
That Geiger meter may be good for a pure material in the lab, but in the field, which it could be covered by dust, by grasses, as the case is in the soccer field, the alpha radiation, they're already blocked by the thinnest barrier, as thin as this thickness of this paper.
Why do people know about Geiger counters then? Like,
because everybody uses them. If you don't know anything, you use it and determine, oh, we don't have a problem.
It's like a doctor uses a thermometer instead of MRI.
So a Geiger counter's not great, but there are other machines that can accurately test soil. One of them is an atomic emission spectrometer. Marv took one of these and built a trailer around it to take it to different contaminated sites across the country.
We built a mobile lab to go to the contaminated site, take a sample, and determine how much contamination was there.
We were trying to implement a new methodology. Up until that time, they get a bunch of people in a room. This is now the DOE. Look at the documents about where people think they buried stuff. And they would write what's called a work plan. It's about that thick. They would do this without anybody ever going out and walking the site and actually seeing what it looked like. First time they went out, most of the samples came back non-detects. Non-detects cost just as much money as a detector.
They would have to take a sample, send it off-site, and have somebody analyze it. As soon as they sent the sample off-site, wherever that sample went, they contaminated. I think DOE has these listed at $2,000 to $5,000 a sample. Digging the sample, sending it off-site. We built the mobile lab with the idea that we could save them. It would essentially cost us $200 a sample.
Did you ever test any sites in Ames? There were a bunch of sites in Ames that were contaminated, right?
No. The closest place we tested was out at the buildings back by the railroad track to see if it would work. We found some material there. Ames Lab says, that shouldn't be there.
Why did you never use the machine to test the sports field in Ames?
Yeah.
The one that site up where the...
It was forbidden. We never tested anything around Ames. Powers to be.
People thought that they could put stuff in the ground and it would stay put. If they'd have talked to hydrogeologists, they would have been told that that's not the case. The groundwater, on average, is only 4 or 5 feet deep, and then there's water, like big giant lakes, aquifers they're called. And the water flows like a pipe. Contamination would move with it. It could move miles from where you put it in a matter of years.
Nuclear waste can be hazardous for hundreds, even thousands of years. The safe management of these nuclear wastes, including their storage, transportation, handling, treatment, and disposal, is a vital issue for all countries, whatever their differences in geologic media, schedule, or government policies. All these countries confront the common challenge of developing the technologies, performing the scientific studies, and designing and developing sound, permanent solutions for the disposal of their high-level nuclear waste.
The United States of America has more than 100 nuclear power units. Ultimate responsibility for these activities lies with the United States Department of Energy. The spent fuel from the nation's nuclear power plants is currently stored on-site in pools of water or above ground in specially designed containers.
And the barrels, what were they made out of?
Steel.
But you just said it's steel.
Corroded after 20 or 30 years, it rots through. Then they pick the barrel up and they spill this stuff all over the ground.
Marvin started talking to me about a site he visited with a mobile laboratory in Fernald, Ohio, where a company called National Lead took over the uranium purification process that had been invented here in Ames. They set up something called a feed processing center there.
Everybody in the area knew there was a feed processing plant. What they didn't realize was the feed was uranium.
This is the story of how these feed materials are processed at the plants operated for the United States Atomic Energy Commission by the National Lead Company of Ohio at Fernald, Ohio, and by the Mallinckrodt Chemical Works at Weldon Spring, Missouri.
The steel, when it rusts as the catalyst so that uranium would go directly into the groundwater. The last few years, they were cleaning the aquifer. Uranium was moving an inch a year towards Cincinnati. How do you clean an aquifer?
It's raising,
How do you do it?
Well,
it cannot be done.
The only thing they can do is pump the water out down here and pump it upstream and go through a process before they put the water back in.
It was a rhetorical question. It really cannot be done. For half a century, this thing going into the water. Number one, how do you catch up for the past 50 years? And then look at it, with this soccer field, they've been fighting for over 20 years that there was no problem. And prior to that, perhaps they were dumping it for another 20 years. Close to half a century, the problem were continuing. And by the time, let's say they agree at the end, yeah, this site is contaminated, it's really too late to do anything.
There were other people who were affected by that uranium. We had 3 very nice children, and I still have 2, but the youngest one has already died, pancreatic cancer. And that was a real heartbreak because his daddy had already died. So we lost my husband and then the boy.
So when was it that you made the connection that Tom's illness might have been caused by radiation?
This is Radiation and Human Health by Dr. John Goffman, probably one of the top experts in the country. There was one whole chapter on Down syndrome, on mutations from low-level radiation. Suddenly it clicked to me, that's Tom. There's about 50 pages. He talks about atom bomb survivors, offspring.
Wow.
He He talks about maternal age, when it occurs. Studies by studies by studies by studies by studies and studies. When Tom was born, well, that was the time of when there was much nuclear fallout from the test. We moved back to Ames in 1984. The city sewage disposal plant had this radioactive sludge that was piling up. They were using it for fertilizing around the city. There was a series of people with cancer. Pat Brown, who was on the city council, became very concerned about it. So concerned it was in the newspapers. So I wrote an open letter to her about my experiences with radiation. There must have been a dozen doctors got into it and didn't want it.
I had reached the same dead end that Grandpa had 20 years ago. There was no way to prove anything about the field without millions of dollars for proper testing. There was a forest fire at Los Alamos.
Yeah.
And the Department of Energy
wanted to take the lab and check for contamination.
They didn't have the equipment themselves to do it.
No, we had the only mobile lab, and DOE had already disabled it.
So basically,
Why?
what happened?
Because the project was canceled.
Why was it canceled?
Ask Washington that.
It's a whole lot better for the Department of Energy that has to pay for it, but it's not a whole lot better for the people who have the contract to clean up the site. These companies are in a position to dictate how the site's cleaned up and have a conflict of interest that is monumental. Namely, the longer it takes, the more money they make. And their political influence outweighs that of the government influence at the Department of Energy.
And they were calling me a liar when I said, well, we can save you so much money. One of the guys came up to me and he says, what will we do with all the extra money we get?
They have a vested interest in prolonging this cleanup as long as possible. The biggest one is Hanford, of course, up in Washington State. They're spending $1.5 billion every year and they're hardly doing anything.
But how much money could the DOE save? Dr. Golchin started calculating some numbers. With a minimum savings of $2,000 per sample, at one contaminated site the size of 6 football fields, like in Fernald, Ohio, you would need a grid of at least 10,000 samples. Even if they only took one sample in each spot, that is a savings of $20 million. And then there are 10 to 20,000 contaminated sites in the country.
That would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 zeros.
That would pay off a lot of student loans.
$200 billion worth of savings.
Hi, Dennis.
Brittany! Oh, good to see you. You got my message, I guess, on the phone.
I did. I'm so excited.
Fabulous. We found the tape. Here is the original
It's like
tape.
a needle in a haystack.
Exactly.
Amazing.
Exactly.
Wow.
This has probably been our biggest challenge to date. 2,130 tapes. And again, there was no guarantee that it would actually be there.
I'd never thought I'd be so excited about public access TV footage.
Good afternoon. My name is Tom Newman. I'm Director of Water and Pollution Control for the City of Ames. I guess I've kind of gotten into this in more detail the last couple of weeks than I anticipated I would. This site was a water pollution control plant operation in 1950 and 51. There were some spills to the sanitary sewer of radioactive material. It came to our wastewater treatment plant. It was treated through the plant. Thorium is a heavy metal. Heavy metal is attached to the solids in the sewage. It settles out with the solids. It becomes part of the sludge. So that's where that material was basically trapped or contained. Sludge material that was stored on site was removed from the site, transported to other sites around city, on city-owned property, the Ames Airport, the cemetery. And that material was land applied and mixed in with the soil at those locations. We made our dry solids available to anyone that wanted to come down and use it. It was very good for home gardens and flower gardens and things like that. You could put it on grain crops such as corn and soybeans or something like that, and that's what we've essentially done.
children in their development stage, they're much more susceptible to radiation than adults. The kids get into the dirt and they get these particles and they take them home and in their clothes and so forth. Most of these mutations from radiation take anywhere from 10, 20 to 30 years to show up. Department of Health persuaded some way or another that we don't know how and why, but it was unprofessional for them to do what they did.
We knew we were going to have a lot of scrap, dross, slag, and so on, and where were we going to put it? Well, the college had a dump down close to the creek. So we went down there and dug a big, deep pit. That's where we're going to put our slag and dross and the waste materials from the production plant.
The excavation progressed as planned, beginning with pit number 1, which contained approximately 90 30-gallon drums. As the excavation continued, pyrophoric metals were eventually uncovered. These metals were anticipated, and the subsequent reactions were allowed to take place under controlled conditions using soil and Metal X fire extinguishers. Nearly 1,500 cubic yards of contaminated soil was removed from the excavation area and placed into 826 super sacks, 425 one-yard bags, and 401 three-yard bags.
They wanted all this waste material shipped into Jersey. Well, we had to get down there with a Geiger counter and dig out all that stuff in the dump, as well as take the stuff out of our pit that had filled up, and we shipped it to New Jersey.
Are they more susceptible to terrorist attack because they're dispersed all over the place? Probably. Would it be better to have them all in one place, guarded like, right? The best guard you could have? Yeah, it would be better there if it was concentrated in one place.
They thought that they were national heroes, and they were told that they were national heroes, that they didn't want to admit what they had been doing had been harming maybe more people than what they had intended to save from communism or whatever else it might be. People don't like to be heroes and then become villains. It's just something that isn't palatable. So they just bury the problems, and the problems go to the grave with them, and you may not find it out unless somebody talks about it.
So it turns out that my hometown and even my country are not the places I thought they were. But strangely enough, I don't love my home any less. If anything, I feel a stronger desire to protect it. The problems we face as a result of environmental contamination are complex. They are not going away by pretending they don't exist.
strong.